Have you ever wondered why you can't remember vocabulary words no matter how hard you try to memorize them? Hola amigos, Sean, brand ambassador with Spanish 55 here. En este video, tengo un reto para ti. I have a challenge for you. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to memorize 10 new vocabulary words per day. That's the challenge, 10 new words per day. And if you think about it, if you do this over time, they say that it takes somewhere between like 5,000 to 10,000 words to reach total fluency in a second language. So if you do that for, let's say, 500 days to 1,000 days, 10 words per day, you'd be speaking totally fluent Spanish within about a year to 3 years. Ahora, analicemos el problema. Let's analyze the problem. The problem is a general difficulty memorizing, remembering vocabulary, okay? According to J.M. Wallace, expert in memorizing vocabulary and teaching vocabulary, there's about 9 things that you need to do, but don't get overwhelmed. I'll kind of explain it and then give you some examples of how to memorize vocabulary. In order to truly memorize a new vocabulary word, you first need to recognize it in its written form. You need to be able to recall it at will. You need to be able to relate it to an appropriate object or concept. You need to be able to use it in an appropriate grammatical form. When speaking, you must pronounce it in a recognizable way. Running out of fingers here, but in writing, you must spell it correctly. You need to use it with words that it goes correctly with. You also need to use it at the appropriate levels of formality. And lastly, you need to be aware of its connotations and associations. If that all sounds complicated, essentially what you need to do is you need to understand the word correctly, you need to know how to say it correctly, and you need to know in which context to use it correctly. Now we're going to put a link in the video description below that goes over how to put words into a correct context. We're also going to put the link for this information that you've got from J.M. Wallace here explaining how vocabulary works. But let me give you some examples, okay? I'm going to give you 10 words. Te voy a dar 10 palabras, okay? Now these words might seem a bit random, and they kind of are, but they're 10 very basic words that every Spanish speaker will of course know and will use quite frequently. I'm going to put them into a context for you to give you an example. So the words on this list are por qué, because. También, also, or to. De, basically meaning of, or like possession. Que, basically meaning that. A, meaning to. Running out of fingers again. Siempre, meaning always. Nunca, meaning never. En, meaning in or on. Abajo, meaning below. And arriba, meaning above. Ahora, vamos a poner esas palabras en un contexto. Let's put these words into a context. Me voy porque es muy tarde. Yo también, por favor. La casa de Juan. El perro que ladra. Me voy a trabajar. Siempre quiero hablar. Nunca quiero trabajar. En mi casa. Abajo de la mesa. Arriba de la mesa. Now you notice here how I'm using all of these words in a very short phrase, but a very complete phrase, like a context, essentially. It's a context. This is the key. Speaking these words out loud in a context that's appropriate. Now these, of course, are just examples of 10 random words that I chose, right? But stay tuned because we're going to have a video coming out shortly on Spanish 55 with Adriana with some essential words that you can use to form questions. Now back to the topic at hand. The goal here is to memorize 10 new words per day, right? I've found over the years that the easiest way to do this is just to create a short study session for yourself every day where you're doing essentially what I was doing, where you're using these words in a context. And then maybe, if you can, once or twice throughout the rest of the day, just kind of repeating the words in your head. You don't necessarily need to speak them out loud. You might be, driving home from work or, on the bus or whatever, if you got a minute or two just to sit there and think, oh yeah, what were those 10 words? Just to kind of repeat them in your head a little bit. Vocabulario es más importante que gramática. Vocabulary is more important than grammar in the context of how quickly you can get fluent in a language. And once again, this is the challenge, okay? Este es el reto. 10 palabras por día, 10 words per day. If you focus on 10 words per day, it's not that much, okay? It's not that much. You're gonna hear some videos that come up with crazy stuff like 50 words or 100 words per day. No, okay. Realistically, as busy people, you probably have a job, you might have children, family, everything. You're not gonna be able to learn 50 new words per day, okay? But 10 new words per day, that's very realistic, okay? Try this method that I just showed you. And of course, as always, click the link below to try out Spanish 55. We'll be waiting for you. Hasta pronto.